Welcome in, everyone, from beautiful Mobile, Alabama. TJ Wengert alongside Zareh Kantzabedian, lead fantasy analyst for 32 Beat Writers. I'm your lead draft analyst. And today, we are breaking down day one of the Senior Bowl. We just had our second set of practices end about 45 minutes ago. We got some grub, and now we're ready to talk about winners and losers from day one of practice. Zareh, your first time ever going to the Senior Bowl, so thoughts, impressions on your first day?
Absolutely. I think it was more of a day where guys were kind of getting their feet wet, kind of feeling the place out for themselves. Kind of just felt wonky a little bit. Felt like more of a defensive day as far as like the secondary went. The secondary is winning a lot of battles. The script kind of changed with practice, the first and second practice, but all in all, pretty good day. Pretty good day. A light showing too, because I don't think a lot of people have made it into this year's Senior Bowl. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff happened. We'll go over it.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing some of the weather implications out here at Mobile. A lot less people, and even some people who showed up like at the end of the first practice, or maybe even just in time for the second one. So very interesting there. Well, Zareh, if you're ready, let's talk winners and losers, man.
Yes, sir.
I'll kick us off. I'll go with two defensive linemen. I know there's a lot of fantasy relevance here, but two of the guys that I thought looked as good as there was in the national practice. Lee Hunter might have been the best player here today. And the fact that he's 6'4", 325, I don't have the official weight on me, but 325, 330, moving the way he does. And then commanding and dominating the one-on-ones like he did. I mean, he showcased power. He showcased a lot of quicks for that side. So, I tweeted out earlier, he's my IDL too, right behind Peter Woods. And I'm pretty firm in that. It's a good D tackle class. I like Caden McDonald. I like, Caleb, well, maybe not so much Caleb Banks, but there's some other D tackles that I'm a big fan of. But I mean, he's standing right up there with some of the best of them right there at IDL too. And who knows, I may even give him the bump over Peter Woods. I know it's sacrilege to some people, but Lee Hunter looked awesome today. And then one other guy I wanted to shout out, TJ Parker. A guy who was in a lot of first-round mocks coming into the season and then kind of a disappointing year for Clemson. Today, he looked rejuvenated. He looked back to his 2024-25 season self, where a lot more explosive off the line. And today, you saw a ton of the power. Also had a great win with the long arm against Jude Bowery, if my memory serves. All in all, really impressed with the power that he brought to the table. And then also with some nice inside counters off of that. So you could tell tackles were trying. And I will also say, from seeing the Senior Bowl last year, this was the case. By the third day, the offensive linemen start to figure out the moves. Like they start to figure out some of the D linemen. So it'll be interesting to see the progression from day one to day three this year. But I thought TJ Parker was fantastic. So was Lee Hunter in that first practice.
Yeah, Josh Cameron, I think with the wide receivers was probably the most standout winner among the offensive skill position players. I'm not going to say they're like clear winners from today. Maybe Josh Cameron being a clear winner, probably the clear winner from today of the offensive wide receivers in general. But yeah, not really a standout day for most of the offensive players. Josh Cameron, if you don't know, he's 6'1", 224 pounds, thick, broad guy. You can compliment Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, Anquan Bolden even. Honestly, I liked him. I started studying this guy in January, and I thought he offered a lot more than what he produced at Baylor, because I just don't think his quarterback was of high-tier quality. Couldn't fit into NFL size windows. But Josh Cameron, being a big guy, does bring nuance. I don't think he has great vertical ability, but he does come down with the ball a lot. And those were the two routes that we saw him come down on. If you go search your Twitter timeline, you'll find Josh Cameron coming out from the Senior Bowl timeline. Another guy, I think Jordan Hudson out of SMU during the live reps, the team defense versus offense reps. He kind of came up with a couple of good grabs on back-to-back plays. Two, I believe, deep outs he was looked at. Those were a couple of guys. I'll pass it back to you if you got him.
Yeah, well, another wide receiver who kind of stole the show, Tyron Montgomery from John Carroll, one of the latest adds to the Senior Bowl roster this year. And I mean, real quick, Josh Cameron, the question for him was like, how much separation is he going to be able to generate this week? And the two highlight reel grabs that I was able to post out earlier today, not a whole lot of separation. But really, if you're going to draft this guy to be an Anquan Bolden 50-50 ball winner, he did put that on display today. So I did like what I saw from Cameron. We also talked about, just in case you don't know, with Cameron, he wears 34. That was his walk-on number. And then when he got a scholarship and put on the roster, he kept the number. So I kind of love him from that standpoint too. But then back to Tyron Montgomery, and hands up, I hadn't watched anything. It was too late. I was catching up on some other players by the time I was, a 12-hour layover in Charlotte yesterday. So I was catching up on everyone and then didn't get to Montgomery. And I think that might have been a grave mistake. I had, luckily enough, caught the shot of him rising up and making a really nice grab over Marcus Allen. And everyone basically responded to that tweet with, I guess I need to watch John Carroll tape. And that's kind of where I'm at. But, prototypical size, 6 foot, 190. He also had a really sharp comeback route against Colton Hood, who I like Hood. I see him as a first-round corner. He's a little stiff in the hips. I'll talk about Hood in just a moment as one of the winners today. But that was the one rep where you saw, someone just exploited that. The hips are a little stiff in Hood, and Montgomery was slippery. Quick comeback route, light feet, choppy feet, also quick on his or smooth in his hips too. So he was a guy that, hand up, hadn't watched, but holy cow, he's given me a lot of good reason to go back and check him out. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. There was another guy like that, very different mold of receiver, but there was a guy that I kept looking down my roster at last year. Who's this number one guy? Who's number one? And go back and check him out. Isaac Tesla goes 70th overall in the NFL draft. So I'm not saying that's going to be the outcome here for Montgomery, but he's definitely made himself some money through one day of practice. One other guy I wanted to throw out, Keelan Rutledge, another offensive lineman. The first 3 reps he had today, the coaches had to tell him to tone down the physicality. My type of guy, 100%. Now, I will say, athletically speaking, I think there's some limitations. This is a gap scheme fit. But, like, hearing that, yeah, this guy's a future Baltimore Raven. If you're a Ravens fan, get your Keelan Rutledge jerseys. Yeah, that's going to be one of your guards next year.
That's what kind of day it was. Tone down the physicality. Everybody's just trying to get warmed up into the situation.
And it was also, today's going to be the coldest of the 3 days here. Yeah. And, just using last year as a reference, day 1 was your scale up. Day 2 is when you start getting into some real fun stuff. And then day 3 is a little bit of a scale down. So just to give you an idea of, like, the bell curve we're heading towards this week. Someone else I want to shout out was Colton Hood. I thought he looked really good on the physical corner reps, has the long speed to run with people. Again, it's just when you see those comeback routes, those outbreaking routes where you see he's a little stiff and a little hard to make those steering, change of direction types of movements. But all in all, for someone who is as physical a corner as he is, he lived up to that. Another corner, Chris Johnson. I didn't watch him that closely, so hand up, I need to go back, and there's just so much going on. You kind of have to prioritize one thing or the other. So tomorrow I'm going to watch him even more. But I did want to note they had the zebra chip tracking in their pads. He had the top speed of any defensive back. And that was my main question. Does Chris Johnson have the speed and the athleticism to match? He looks like he has it at San Diego State. Does he do it against P4 guys? And he collected almost 20 miles an hour today. Top DB score from that first practice. So, yeah, liked a lot of what I saw from Chris Johnson from that standpoint. Any other names you want to shout out from the first practice?
Yeah, we were talking about him a little bit. Aaron Anderson out of LSU, kind of a small guy, 5'8", 177. I got him listed at PFF at 5'8", 188. I mean, he may have lost 10 pounds. Usually they put on weight, but yeah. So he looks like he lost weight, but he had a nice rep against what was the corner's name?
Ephesian Prysock.
Yeah. So Aaron Anderson's a small guy, so Ephesian Prysock put some hands on him, and it took Anderson a little bit of time to work upfield, but he kind of shook left. Fusion Prysock was like left in the dirt. He put Prysock in the dirt. Anderson came back, made the catch. Nice little rep, but he had a sophomore breakout season at LSU. Went up for over 800 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. 2025 comes back. He's missed 4 games. Yards per game goes down. Barry and Brown's a leading receiver now at LSU. So you see that a lot with this class. You see a lot of really spiked 2024 years. They come down on 2025. They can't maintain that productivity, or it's going to be the other thing where they just don't do anything for like 2 or 3 years in college, and then finally kind of like spike up in their final year of his final year of college. So, and then the tight end out of TCU, can't remember, DeAndre
Carter, I think.
DeAndre Rogers.
There you go.
DeAndre Rogers. He showed up a few times with a couple nice catches, but I mean, like those are like that. Those are what we're working with at the Senior Bowl. Small sample sizes, so you get a couple good catches. Those are wins at the Senior Bowl.
Especially when you're catching passes from quarterbacks you have absolutely no chemistry with. I mean, you have something like Sawyer Robertson was here and Josh Cameron was here, both from the same school, but there's only so much of that ultimately.
I'll just say, like, I was looking for Malachi Fields to do something.
Yeah.
Had one nice catch. He wasn't really throwing the ball throwing too much. Had a nice block on some interior blocking. One of the coaches came up and gave him a high five. So I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, that's great. And then I'll just say real quick, running backs really don't do, they don't really stand out at the Senior Bowl. There's no live tackling really happening. So, I mean, what you can take away from them is them like running deep routes and pass protection. All the running backs really didn't do too well in pass protection. Nick Singleton had a standout rep, but that was about it. Nobody really did much in pass pro.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about running real quick. Answering this question, media day is tomorrow at 10:30. So tomorrow is when they're doing the big media day. Everyone come all, and get your questions answered. So thanks for that question. Any other questions you want us answered, send them into the chat. Running backs, there's a couple things, like we tweeted out the clip of Seth McGowan. He looks as smooth as he does on tape. So it's just kind of verifying those things. And then also like comfortability catching the football. That's another big thing you want to keep your eye on. And then, pass protection as much as you can. I will say though, like we talked about this in the preview episode we did, but the running backs have to take out the linebackers when it comes to those pass catching drills. That's just a drill that you're not going to look good in as a linebacker most times. But then pass protection is the chance for the linebackers to get some revenge. Like, I'm going to blow you up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's always fun to see the push-pull there, if you will. I do want to talk about Malachi Fields in just a moment, but a couple other guys that popped from the national practice, the first of 2 practices. Deny Dennis Sutton. Folks, we might have something here. I know Penn State tailed off towards the end of the season, but I think from a pass rush standpoint, he showcased good juice today, and he used his length really well. So I still think he's a guy that is edge first. You can fold inside, and specifically, I think we see him pop more as a pass rusher than as a run defender. Senior Bowl's not always the best showcase for that because tackling just isn't always happening, but just from what I watched him this year at Penn State. But man, he might be a really interesting like body type that someone wants to take a chance on as a pass rusher in the 3rd round or something like that. I thought he looked pretty solid today. And then the last one that I wanted to mention was Demetrius Crownover, right tackle from Texas A&M. This dude is like built in a lab to play offensive tackle, like has the arm length, has the size, has pretty solid feet. It's just in a game-by-game basis, there's always something working against him. It feels like it just the tools never come together. But dude, today he looked really good. So like that's a guy that I didn't really have high hopes for coming in, and I don't mean to like besmirch him by that mean, but I didn't love the tape. But today he showcased a lot of the best of his tools and what they could do. So I want to see, hey, day 2, where do we go from here? Day 3, where do we go? And he could be this year's kind of Anthony Belton. You know, Belton lost 25 pounds, and all of a sudden 350 looks lighter on his feet, and he goes from a day 3 guy to getting picked 56 overall by the Green Bay Packers. I could see Crownover maybe not going that high, but he could move himself from 6th, 7th round, consideration. You're just taking him because of the traits to maybe this guy does sneak in top 100 or right there after first pick or priority pick in the 4th round. So Demetrius Crownover, another interesting player type there. And then getting all into that second practice, 2 guys I do want to talk about were Malachi Fields. He was one that for the eyeball test, it looked right to me. Kind of like the Pat Bryant thing I had mentioned in that preview episode with you, where there's just a little bit more juice there than what I think you see on tape. Yeah. We actually talked to Trevor Sicklewood from PFF about that. But then the blocking, I think that's another big reason why you would draft this guy, right? Like if you're Shanahan, if you're McVay or whatever, and you're trying to get this depth position, that's a valuable, piece of his skill set. And then the guy I really wanted to see was Ted Hurst. Valdosta State, transferred to Georgia State. Okay, he's got some good tape. He's got some good stats, but the level of competition, let's see it in real life. Well, speaking of Trevor Sicklewood, he actually tweeted out, if you want to see it, a sick one-handed grab from Ted Hurst. But then also some really nice after-the-catch stuff that you see on tape. It looked the part when you're here and just seeing him moving between in and out of routes, but also just out and about moving on the field. And he also weighed in at 205 pounds. So he's listed at Georgia State at 185. And today I felt like he looked at 6'3", maybe 205 isn't what he officially played at, but he looked more filled out in his frame, which if he's going to be this vertical guy who can challenge over the top, I want to have that muscle mass on his body. So
that's what they wanted to see out of Ted Hurst, that kind of vertical, more of a vertical game, right?
Yeah, exactly. He had 17 forced missed tackles, but some of that's like Georgia State quarterback play, no disrespect, not that great. So what's the easiest thing you do? Let's just throw this guy a bubble. And he makes guys miss. And he had like a little bit of a Quentin Johnston type of like, he's big but slender and like slippery. Like you look at Quentin Johnston, you're like, he's 6'3". How can't you get your hands on him? But that's just kind of like what worked for him at TCU. I thought Hurst had some of that, but today we got to see him play like true receiver. And then plus you see how he moves and really like, you see him and he's in the same practice as Jacoby Lane. And what I wanted to see was how much separation could Jacoby Lane generate. And I thought it was an okay day for Jacoby. It wasn't great, bad. It was just kind of negative.
Nice little catch.
It was just kind of a neutral day. Yeah. And then, but I think you see Hurst and you're like, that guy has more explosiveness. He's a little bit more fluid in and out of his breaks and change of direction. So we might have something here with Ted Hurst. I'm very, very interested. And it's just tough when you see small school tape. You're like, cool. Yeah. But this is the barometer test. This is the chance to go see it. So I thought Ted Hurst was a really nice shining star at the second practice.
Absolutely. And a good example of why this place is important, right? Because in college, we get a lot of gimmick offenses. The route trees aren't really expanded in college. If you're watching college wide receivers, it gets kind of frustrating. You're like, all right, I'm tired of seeing the same route. Let's see something else. Senior Bowl, a great opportunity, kind of puts him on an island, puts him under the spotlight. So, yeah, Ted Hurst really taking advantage of the opportunity. And as far as anybody else goes, I mean, yeah, Jacoby Lane had a nice catch, but really nothing else really kind of happened. Second practice, we were waiting for something to happen. There were just run play after run play after run play after run play. And just people started walking out the door at that point. We're like, okay, we're going to.
Three more guys that did pop from the O-line, D-line one-on-ones. Derek Moore, I tweeted out that clip of him running through Markel Bell, which, for instance, Markel Bell is 6'9", 346. I'm not the only guy who got clip of it, but literally in the audio of my clip, you can hear the entire stadium. Everyone who was there. Ooh. And I mean, Derek Moore is not a big dude. I mean, he's NFL size, but he's not a massive edge rusher. He's not Zion Young, who I want to talk about in a moment. But I mean, he just absolutely converted speed to power and went through the chest of Markel Bell. And that's when you're talking about Derek Moore, who I already kind of like could this guy be a second rounder to the Philadelphia Eagles? So a lot of people who are Eagles fans responded to that tweet saying Eagle, and I kind of like that fit. But his ability to turn the corner and win off the arc, and then that ability to win speed to power, that's enough to keep tackles guessing. While he doesn't have a great inside move, the ability to go around or through is just enough to where I think like second round, the juice he has off the line, really impressed with him. The two other guys I had to mention, Grayson Halton, he's this bigger body nose tackle, but he's kind of more of a finesse rusher. He pulled off a really nice spin move today in the one-on-ones, and I was like, there it is. There's the movement skills. That makes him a really interesting prospect. And then Zion Young. And both the wins that impressed me with Zion Young, because his profile is like hard edge setting, power, edge rusher. He just kind of fits into that archetype. Power rusher, going to stop the run. Both of his wins today that caught my eye were inside counters. And when you're talking about, okay, he's got a good first step, he can win with power. Now you're able to win across the face of a tackle. Interesting. And one of those wins was also from the interior too. So bigger body guy, getting to see him fold inside and actually see him get a win. That's all very intriguing. So Zion Young was not someone I was super high on. Probably, like preseason, I kind of saw him as a fourth round guy. Some good tape, would maybe consider him as a third round dude. I think he's kind of planting his flag. He's firmly a day two guy, specifically with the run defense, but the versatility he showcased as a pass rusher, really interesting. Now, again, I say that with the caveat, let's see that day three. If he's still doing that day three, 100% lock this guy into day two. But don't be surprised if the offensive line starts making some adjustments. They start seeing these moves. They start seeing these guys enough to where day two and day three may be a different story.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other players you want to bring to the table?
Not much today. That's about it.
Yeah, it really was just kind of a snapshot. And again, a lot of people still getting in with travel, and today is still just the buildup. I know people are going to ask about the quarterback, so I do want to hit on that real quick. The national practice, I didn't see anything really crazy. Pavia looks like he's about 5'9", and I wasn't even there for the measurements, but man, oh man, standing next to some of the other guys, he looks small. He had that one deep ball to Josh Cameron. Some people had some funny replies to that where he's just chucking it up and he's just heaving and sort of prayer up there. So, and then Cole Payton's the one that was kind of interesting. He, I think it was his sophomore year, he ran for like 13, 15 touchdowns, something like that. But he wasn't there like starting quarterback or anything. Then eventually he took over that role, and he is this dynamic dual threat. He's you got to see the athleticism on display today, and he's got a strong arm. He's got a pretty good arm. There's just still a lot of footwork and a lot of mechanics that need to be worked on. So to me, Cole Payton is like drafting stat, Brian Daboll just got a job at the Titans. They obviously have Cam Ward, but if you have a quarterback whisperer or someone who can work some magic, if you took him in like the 6th round, which I think he'll probably go before then, but somewhere 5th, 6th round, you could draft and stash him and see where he's at, because he's still just kind of early on, I think, from his footwork and his mechanics. He's just got a loopy release, but he's got a good arm, and he had a couple of nice throws today. And I will say, small school guys stepping up and getting into higher level of competition, it's interesting to think about the speed of play. And what I will say, he didn't look as lost as, the name is escaping me, but we had a Canadian quarterback last year, won the Canadian Heisman. That first day for him, it was like, deer in headlights. Like, this is all moving really fast. So appreciate you. Always love the support. But I don't think Cole Payton was quite that deer in the headlights, but you could tell the speed of the game was a little bit fast for him. But he still had a couple of nice throws. The ball placement was generally pretty solid, so I wanted to hit on that real quick. Be interested to see where he goes the rest, especially starting tomorrow. We'll start to see red zone. You're not going to see him tuck and run because they don't let the quarterbacks do that, but that is a huge part of his game to take away. So that's interesting to me. And what do his feet look like? And the margin for error in the red zone is so thin. So timing and footwork are paramount. So I'm very interested to see Cole Payton tomorrow. And then for the American practice, I'll be honest, I thought those were the 3 best quarterbacks we saw today. Taylor Green, probably the weakest of that bunch, but man, big, tall, athletic looking. And when he lets it rip, it's a missile. And then you got Luke Altmaier, who solid. I think he's like a future dependable backup quarterback. Did a lot of little things well. The feet look good in the footwork drills. Delivered a couple of nice balls right over the middle of the field with good zip, good urgency. So he's just doing a lot of little things. And then Garrett Nussmeier, he had a little bit of a rocky start to practice. A couple of misses where he missed one to Malachi Fields.
I wasn't happy about that.
And it was just warm-ups. He's throwing against air. Yeah. So no big deal. But it was one where you're like, oh, that's a little weird. But as the day went on, I thought he got sharper and sharper. Now, granted, he is 6'1". He's 202 pounds. He is not this big. If you could put his mind in Taylor Green's body, we would have a first rounder for sure. But I think you're still seeing some of the size limitations like he had in that 11-on-11 drill. He got stripped from behind, and it's just, I think he was holding on to the football, didn't see anything over the middle of the field, and then edge rusher comes in behind him, pokes it free. So you're still seeing him hold on to the football, and really his best throws are still throwing with anticipation, and he's trying to do that with guys he hasn't thrown to before. So there's a couple moments where he's trusting the guy, and the ball gets there, and it's really well timed, and it's a beautiful execution of the play. And there's other times where the guys just aren't quite on the same page. So, or where he's holding on to the ball because he doesn't know where to anticipate this guy going. So Little things like that. Any other names on there that pop off as you're looking at the rosters?
Scooby Williams.
Scooby Williams, a couple of nice plays there.
He had a nice little blitz up the middle for what is it? It was for a sack, and then the play right before that, it was kind of like it was like a check down to a running back. He had the pick on that one. So two sequences in a row where he kind of shined in the first practice.
Yeah.
That's about it though. I can't really think of anything else. Kind of a quiet day.
Yeah. Bit of a build-up day. Yeah. People still coming into Mobile. Tomorrow is when things are going to start getting really fun, especially because we're going to get into red zones with the quarterbacks, and we're going to do more 11 on 11. Also, it's going to be a little bit warmer tomorrow, so I think that's going to help too. I think we got to that second practice, and it started to get pretty cold. Yeah. So I wonder if that's part of why that practice started to get shaped the way it was. Yeah. But guys, any other thoughts, questions? Let's hear those thoughts and theories tomorrow. Like I said, it's going to be a really interesting day, a little bit warmer, but also a little bit more continuity with these guys. So I'm excited to see that. And plus the coaches too. You got to think this is the first time some of these guys have led a practice too. So like, there's probably some adjustments that are going to be made from the coaching side. But if you have any questions, this is your time to get them in with lead fantasy analyst Zareh Kantzabedian.
Love to take all the questions. Absolutely.
All the questions. If not, we're happy to get out of here. And we've got some people waiting for us. So we're happy to make it happen. And let us know if you like the live streams. I think the live streams are the move. I
love this. I like the live streams. I like to interact with all you guys, asking questions. Definitely, get those answers, get those questions in. Answered in real time.
Here's the most important question. So Zareh, after practice, had cookout for the first time. Scale of 1 to 10. What do we give it?
Oh man, a scale of 1 to 10,
including price. You got to include the price in there. That's a key component.
Well, I don't even know. I can't remember what I paid for it, honestly.
This guy, money bags over here.
I'm so damn hungry. I'll give it like it was like a 7 for what it.
Sure.
For what it is. Yeah. Overwhelmed by the menu. Really had no idea what I was doing here. There was like a top portion of the menu that was like in fine print. And there was like the color scaling was all off for my eyes. I panicked. I just copied his order and took. Yeah.
The California kid takes on the South, the Southern staple at his cookout.
My head fell off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to do it. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Tomorrow, we'll be pretty much going live at the same time tomorrow for day 2 recap. And that should be a little bit more of a juicy haul. But it also will have context of, hey, this guy looked good day 1 and he built on it in day 2 or vice versa. Yeah. So tomorrow we'll definitely have a little bit more to dive into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us. Be sure to like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us here on X. If you have any questions, be sure to either DM Zareh or myself. You can find our handles right below us. But until tomorrow, we are signing off.